Okay, hello and welcome everyone. So today we're gonna, let me check my notes. So we're gonna talk about how AI will steal your job, make you unemployed, and take over the, sorry, wrong note. No, we wanna show you how AI won't steal your job, but how it will make you unstoppable, how AI can empower you. And first of all, a little bit question of who is already using AI in some kind of fashion? Most. Who is not yet using AI? Wow. And who is using AI already for coding related things? Great. Perfect. So now we have a little bit of an idea of who you are, and maybe you'll find yourself in one of the next parts. So, who of you are actual developers? Cool, a lot of developers here, great. So the first persona we have is, I've never seen AI write code successfully. And actually, there was someone I met here at DrupalCon, and they said this. So yeah, that's no, it doesn't work. Okay, the last human in the repo, actually. And the next one is, I tried AI when ChatGPT first came out. It was not for me, it's just too many mistakes. Well, there's some people who are still missing the old dial-up times. But perception is changing. So the next thing is we have AI wrote that because this looks like it might work. That was a core committer. Changing perception one line at a code. Wow, this AI code review is actually really good. Grudgingly impressed. AI can refactor code and reduce complexity? That's amazing. Well, amazed and already slightly unemployed. So what we learned today is why your organization needs an AI portal, how to be successful with AI, the process of good development, case studies, how AI is always changing and adaptation is key. Like, I'm really good already at this, but almost I cannot keep up with, like, it's changing so fast. Yeah, and who we are is, I'm Fabian Franz, VP of Software Engineering, Robot, and AI innovator. And rumors are that I never sleep. I don't know, might be true. And if you're not familiar with Tech1, we are a global technology consulting group focused on using open source software to solve the toughest problems of well-known organizations. We work with a lot of different technologies, but we are best known as the #2 all-time contributor to Drupal. Since 2001, our team has created many of the innovations that have fueled Drupal's success, such as a taxonomy system and Migrate API. And I hope we can continue doing that now with AI, empowering more of the community to use AI for developing open source patches to make Drupal development more streamlined in that, because it's ideal for open source. So if you use Drupal, and I'm pretty sure you do, you rely on Tech1 every time you update the Drupal site, because we manage the infrastructure and tooling used to build, test, and release Drupal on behalf of the Drupal Association and community. And this is Marco Molinari, a technical lead and AI enthusiast, and I heard a rumor that he even has an AI in his basement.
Hi, hello, good afternoon. So this session will be divided in 3 parts. In the first part, we will talk about how we use AI internally in Tag1. The second part will be about what we use to use AI. And the last part will be about challenges and lessons that we have learned. So how we use AI? Well, of course, we use AI like for everyday tasks. I'm talking about summarizing articles, maybe before reading them, or check documents, or even contracts. I'm not talking about having only an AI check contract, but maybe having the AI also checking the contract and then of course, we will need to check it as well. For research, and this is what I mean. When we talk about researching, it's when you go to a chat GPT and you search for something, and to generate reports and other small tasks, that's also very useful. And for communications, like proofreading, changing the tone of a communication, checking the tone, and so on. So, I mean, pretty basic stuff, for sure. But I'd like you to think about this. 3 years ago, these things were science fiction, okay? Now they're the first slide with a sleeping robot. We also use AI every day for other tasks. For example, for learning. I believe that it's very nice for learning because to deeply understand maybe a new subject, a new library. For example, you may want to ask it to explain something in detail. Maybe you want the AI to rephrase something or to focus on a certain subject, or maybe to explain in simpler terms so you fully understand it, or even to you may want to use it to ask for a confirmation that you actually understood something. I think it's amazing for learning. Something that I think is a good use. I'm sure some of you have seen this. I have seen this many times. You know, when you have started a project and you have been introduced, like say, 3 weeks ago, and then there are some things that you cannot ask anymore because some concepts, some terminology, it's too late to ask them, you know. But AI, you can ask these things to an AI because they will not judge you. And note-taking. I think we are already seeing in certain cases note-taking, like during a conference call, an agent that's actually taking notes, and at the end of the conference, it will send the summary of the notes. If you haven't seen these already, you will see it soon. And of course, preparing sessions. Okay, but I mean, almost all of us are developers. So how do we use for development? Code reviews, a lot. And as before, not as the only tool for code reviews, but imagine like an assistant. It's a lot like pair programming. So code reviews, commit messages. Oh, I love AI for commit messages. And once again, then of course I will look at it and maybe I will change it, most of it, but it will give me some ideas, okay? Instead of just saying, oh, bug fix it. Unit tests, it's great. Documentation, and we will see an example later. And as a code assistant. Now, as a code assistant, it can be code completion, which I'm actually not a huge fan of, or maybe as a chat and you enter some code and you ask it in natural language for some change and so on. But I'd like to bring a first example of quite an advanced code assistant that we built internally. And this is about Tag1 D7ES, so it's essentially in advertising. You may know that Tag1 has a Drupal 7 extended support program. We provide patches for Drupal 7 core, contrib modules. And there is a tricky case. The tricky case is a CK editor. So you may know that CK Editor 4 is not supported anymore. And if you want a fully secure site, you need to have also a secure CK editor. You have two choices. You can pay for CK Editor 4 extended support, or you can upgrade to CK Editor 5. We suggest upgrading to CK Editor 5, and we also provide an upgrade path. So it has a lot of benefits. It's great. It's also great because maybe it will help a future transition to Drupal 11. So it's great. And everything works well. But custom plugins. So what are custom plugins? It's something that maybe the client has built for their internal use, to work with some internal thing that they have. okay? And they have this custom plugin, and that's an issue because the API for plugins for CK Editor 4 is completely different from the one for CK Editor 5. And essentially the plugin needs to be written from scratch. It's a big deal. It takes quite some time. So what we built internally is an AI tool. If you just ask any model to take a CK Editor 4 plugin and convert it into a CK Editor 5 plugin, it will fail badly. But we built an AI tool using RAG, using certain examples, system prompts, and so on. And now we have a tool that can actually make most of the work. More or less, we estimate that it gets to 80 to 90% of the work done, which is great. It saves a huge amount of time. Then, of course, a developer will need to review everything, probably fix a few things. We also have a way to, the LLM will suggest with comments, now here you need to probably to touch something and so on. But it's a huge help. And of course, at the end of the day, it's a sort of a supercharged boilerplate for the plugin, and all the time that's saved also means that it's much less expensive for the client, of course. So it works really well. Now, this session is mostly about how we use it internally and the tools, but I also wanted to mention what we built for the clients using AI more or less in the past year. And I think they can be divided into 4 major categories. One is, let's call it content manipulation. In certain cases, there are really good reasons to create tools that can extend existing content, maybe changing the tone of the content, maybe retargeting the content for a different audience, remixing, so to say. And just to be very clear, this is not like a cheap way to create new content so that there is a lot of content on the side. No, there are really good reasons why you could want something like this. Just to give you an idea, think about training. Okay, so maybe you have something and then you want to target a different audience and so on. Another big area is all the other content administration, so translations, tagging, the generation of alt text for images, automatic summaries, suggesting relationships between different content, content validation in many different levels, from proofreading to editing and making maybe the text run smoother, to also high-level validation with certain business rules. Then we have what I've called content promotion. And for example, search. We've seen a massive shift towards AI search, but also, of course, search suggestion, recommendations, and so on. And finally, everything regarding the community. So comment moderation, spam, and so on. So very briefly, I mean, of course, something like this would probably be worth its own session, but I just wanted to mention these points. Next, another big area where we work with AI and we create stuff with AI is open source. But Fabian is going to talk about this.
Thank you. So now comes my exciting part, because I'm now going to show several case studies of how I have used AI for various things already, and really can prove to you, yes, AI is ready for coding, and also some ideas of how you could use it in the evolvement of it. So from the case studies, one of the things is an actual core patch. So there was a core patch for adding a cached placeholder strategy, which will improve perceived performance a lot in that. And there was one very, very tricky problem. And the tricky problem was that we had one cache get and we needed one cache get multiple. and that was non-trivial because the get already was such a function, the other get was also such a function. But it turns out ChatGPT was really, really good in doing so. But here I used also a little trick in terms of like, at that time it was still ChatGPT and Grok 2, so it's a little bit historical already, like old news. And one thing you can do is you can input the same commands and same ideas into two different models and see where they converge, essentially. And then you know that you are pretty much at an ideal solution in that. So that's a good way to do that, and a little trick in that. So, and they nailed it in 30 minutes. And yeah, we got a nice comment from people in that. Wow, AI wrote that? That's cool. So yeah, that was case study 1. The other one was the open source OpenTelemetry PHP extension. OpenTelemetry is a new thing that Tech1 is also heavily investing in right now, which allows you to profile your Drupal site in terms of like getting various traces. And the nice thing is, I mean, several of you have probably heard of New Relic, of Datadog, of all these tools. And but now we can very, very granular say, I want to just profile, just instrument the cache gets. I just want to profile views. Like I want to, whenever there's a view on a site, I want to have an entry in my graph here, and that works really well. And what it was missing, this OpenTelemetry PHP extension, was an observe all function. And I'll be getting to that in a moment why I did that, but I really want to hook into any PHP function call, like want to see what would be my overhead like if I traced everything instead of like with tools, xhprof, profiling things. So did that. And the problem was I had never seen the code of that extension before. Neither had AI. So we started at ground zero. And still, Claude, in this case, DeepSeek R1, and me came up together with an architecture, how to implement it. We discussed it for a while. And then AI gave me the code, and I was the code slave to implement those things manually and put it in copy and paste. Below is the link, which you can only see if I shortly hide the CCs and then show it again. The other part, how we, I want this comparison really, the overhead is 15 times, so it's not 15 times of stock xhprof overhead, so it wasn't as feasible, the observe all idea, but the PR still exists. What I really want to do for years, write the world's fastest xhprof profiler, because a huge problem in Drupal performance profiling, and Tech1 is a company that's also specialized in high performance, and we do a lot of performance audits. We ensure sites are fast. And one thing we see is Drupal has this insanely long function calls, but in actual PHP JIT, that's really fast, but as soon as you profile it, you think it's a huge problem in that. And so the profiler is essentially giving a very, very distorted image of what the actual performance is like. Like if you, for example, and that's one of the ways I do it often in performance things, if I just comment out this long function call, like this long chain, just change the code, remove it for a moment, and then I run it. And then I see, wow, it has no impact in that, like, actually there's no real change. But as soon as you do it with the profiler, it says like, wow, this would really save 1 second. No, it's misleading. And so the performance of our performance tools matters as well. And before this patch, it was a 355 overhead. After the patch, like just 47%. So 1 second baseline before 3.5, after 1.4. In this case, DeepSeek R1 wrote most of the code under guidance for me. Also tested O1 a little bit, but DeepSeek got the better one. Again, a little bit historical. And then in the end was, okay, I now have the full plan of how to implement this. Which model now can implement that for me? And I tried a lot. Like Claude Heiko was especially fun because it was like, now give me the whole file. And Claude Heiko was, are you sure you really, really, really want me to give you the whole file? I was like, yes, I want to. Let me ensure just one last time that you really want the whole file. I was like, yes, please give me the file. And then Heiko was like, okay, here's a file. Snip, everything that wasn't changed, removed. One function, everything that wasn't changed, removed. I was like, that's not the whole file. Are you sure you want the whole file? So yeah, AI can be really funny in that. In the end, I test a lot of models on command line, and we come to that in a moment, how to do that, how to actually then implement those changes, because I just didn't want to copy and paste everything again, because I had a nice plan. AI should be able to do that. So in the end, it turns out GPT-4o was the most stable model that also was able to process large files. Because, for example, Grok 2, it was great, it was fast, it did it, and then it was stopping. Well, no more output for you. So that's that sin. And you can, again, find the link here. And continuing. So the next thing is, and my colleague, Andrew Matiscu, was like on a call, well, I have this refactoring problem for Drupal workspaces. Tech1, Hank and Michael Myers from Tech1 have already talked about it during the Healthcare Summit about workspaces. We had a session at Barcelona recently. A workspace is a way how you can essentially have content staging for your site all within Drupal. It's wonderful for editorial teams and supported by core. And he was like, well, I have this thing, I have this this workspace association thing, and I really, really wanted to call it workspace tracker from the start on. So, and his goal was, well, AI should be able to do that, right? And it turns out the approach of just taking the whole code base and pasting it into one model didn't work as well. Because workspaces is huge. It's a really fine piece of software within Drupal. So I was then consulting with DeepSeek R1, and it wrote me a nice AI refactor Python script. And so one way how you can work with the AI portal, to which we come in a moment, is you can also set it up with it exposes an API endpoint, so we can also use it from the command line. And this is a real-life example of how I use the script to do the workspace thing. The prompt comes in a moment. A little bit of bash magic, like finding all the files in that, putting things into a log file. And then it was doing its thing. And again, I was testing a lot of models and doing that. First start with DeepSeek R1, but it was very, very slow to think about everything. So that wasn't really what I needed. Again, ChatGPT-4o at that point was the most stable model that was not overthinking things or not suddenly not following instructions and just outputting a section of the file in that. The script is really dumb because it's really just, I get a PHP code snippet back and I just put that into the file and write it. And code review, I did myself. So, and that's the actual prompt. Oh my God. I think that's all. Yeah. Okay. So the actual prompt is we are defining two variables because at that point that was best practice of how to do things with the models. It has improved a little bit by now again, so it's no longer best practice, but you can still use it. But essentially I told it, intelligently rename this class to this class, also ensure you do the interfaces, the service name. I gave it extra after it couldn't catch it up, and ensure to not rename the database table. And that was kind of like the challenge here, because the database table is conveniently called workspace_association as well. So pure copy and paste, fine, would have never worked for this refactor. And there's also a lot of documentation where it was referencing to workspace association and then workspace tracker. And yeah, the prompt worked really well. And in the end, that was it. And code follows was the code to do. Then there was a little bit more instructions of like output exactly one PHP snippet with the whole file again and the changes. And if there's no thing, just output an empty code snippet, which some ARs also didn't follow. Like, there's no changes, but I'll still give you the full snippet without changes. So it was fun. Okay, the next case study is now I had smelled blood, because now I knew, okay, the command line is powerful. I got my power back. I'm out of the chat interfaces. I'm back where I'm most familiar with. Command line, VI, that's my world. So now I want to do an experiment of 100% AI written code. So I've written a short OpenTelemetry PHP instrumentation trait, which just makes it so much easier to set up these instrumentations for OpenTelemetry. And this talk's not about that, but the important thing here is, yes, AI was able to write all that code. And essentially, I had a lot of fun of just running my little script, putting the prompt either in a file if it was longer or inline, like you can see here. And then running it, git diff, commit, and going my way. So that was working really well as well. Then we have our most recent problem. And now we've already evolved to modern times, which is Cloud Console, Cloud Code. We had the problem of Redis. And we want to know, why is the Redis module not playing nice with Redis cluster? And in the end, it did a nice analysis, and I need to switch this off real quick. So it turns out in just 3 minutes, 33 seconds of API durations and 69 cents of cost, it could give us the answer, which was really, really good, because Redis is a complex code base. And again, then we ask it to, we investigate a little bit ourselves and ask it to change it. And then again, with around $1.33, we could solve the problem, and we've been working on that for a while. This was just the last stepping stone. Everything should have worked, and it turns out Claude and our own analysis was spot on. It was the transactional support that was breaking things, changing it to pipeline, made everything work perfectly. And we'll be blogging about that. So Narayan, who's also here, will be writing a nice blog about that, and then you will learn about how Redis module really is just usable with one Redis instance by default, but if you want to use it with Redis cluster, you need a little bit of magic setup that we figured out, or a lot of magic setup. So oh yeah, and the last thing is Grox 3 right now, as of now, might change tomorrow. It's if you enable syncing mode, it's a perfect mirror. Like you can really get to know or grok yourself with that. And the approach is you just tell Grox 3 what you do or what you did, a situation that you experience or whatever. And Grox 3 will just mirror your thoughts back to you in an easier, understandable way. And that's so great, because you have complex thoughts and your thoughts are not yet making complete sense. And then it mirrors them back and maybe even misunderstands some. Then you explain, no, you got that wrong. And then it mirrors it back. And then you get much more insight into what you want to do and those things. So that's perfect. So now we come to the second part, the technical approach behind the scenes. We created we decided for our organization that the best way is for developers not to have a developer like, oh, I'm just going to paste this really confidential data into ChatGPT, but to have a proper AI policy and also empower developers with internal tools and guidelines how to use them, because that makes much more sense in that. And for that for that AI portal we are providing all developers with, we use the Open Web UI portal. It has lots of advantages. It's open source. The UI is very familiar. similar to ChatGPT Cloud. It has lots of features. It's always improving. You have plug-in possibilities. They probably use AI for development because they are so fast. You can have multiple models at once, which is something I really, really love. Like you started chat with DeepSeek, and now you're pretty good, but DeepSeek has like gone into a corner and you can't compete. Yeah, you just switch to Claude, and Claude is continuing with the same context, and that's cool. You can extend it. You have custom system prompts, which Marco will talk more about later. And yeah, what can offer. And that's how it looks like. So the portal. Okay, you have, that are all the models we are providing right now: OpenAI, Llama, Mistral, Qwen, DeepSeek, some reasoning models, external, internal, local. And one thing I just want to talk real quick about is internal models, because the problem is you don't want to send your data to just any external provider. You want to deploy it on your own internal hardware. So you can either rent hardware, which is expensive, or you can have on-demand models in Azure, AI, AWS, Bedrock, or GCP, because they are all running in your own cloud account. And that's so important for that thing, because you can say, this is our infrastructure. And so you know it's hitting your servers, and that even if it's an on-demand instance, Azure is still doing some kind of like isolation, whatever, how they do it. Yeah, and so on demand we have Mistral Small. Azure, you get OpenAI, which is even faster than on closed AI infrastructure, OpenAI infrastructure, and Llama 3.370B, DeepSeek R1 fee. You can try it for free on the GitHub marketplace. Bedrock, you get Claude, and Google, you get Gemini. So you get them all. Yeah. And so my tools evolved a little bit in that. That we have ChatGPT Grok is what I started essentially, because those were the chat interface available. Then Marco and Jeremy brought me to Open Web UI, a whole new world opened up for me when I could like have my own chats, everything local in that, and it was just great, switching models, customizing, creating reasoning models, doing things. Later, I even wrote some plugins like the newest Cloud 3.7 pipeline and developed this a little bit. AI refactor was next thing. Command line, I got my power back. And then Claude was like, yeah, we also have your power with the Claude console, even more powerful in that. And the real technical approach and important thing is you want to think of what to do next. Like that's, in my opinion, it's an opinion, it's workflow obviously, how I program and how I've been successful with programming. You think of what to do next, you code just the next step, you test that little code, and then you commit the code, and then you continue in that. And for me, testing even means, and I know with IDE and modern world, it's sometimes even frowned upon, but I just do print R. Like, see, it gets the right output at that point. That's a test, and now the code works to that point. Okay, I can continue and iterate further in that. And the advantage of that workflow is that we can come out of that ideal development workflow into then ideal AI development workflow. Because we have models that can think of what to do next, which are Grok 3, Cloud 3.7, DeepSeek R1, O1, O3 Mini High. We can have models that can code the next step. GPT-4o, really good for coding still. Claude 3.7, 3.5, Llama 3.370B. Yeah, and Claude was one of those models that with refactoring whole files often failed. So yeah, but for little steps, yeah, that's great. Then you can test the code, which is more the work of autonomous AI agents, which are also coming up more. And what no one even talks about is we need sandboxing more. Like everyone is giving full access to their machines. Like really, in my opinion, it should be like a mini deployment of the code, which is really fast in like a secure Docker. And then the code is run, tested, and reported back by that agent. And in the end, code is reviewed. There are, again, reasoning models that can help us that. And you want really multiple models as experts working together for code review. But everyone can start with an AE augmented development workflow. You think of what to do next, you code the next step, you delegate this step via Code Console or a refactor Python or whatever. Then you test the code manually, then you commit it, and you still get your nice commit history. Everything is clean. There's no AI mess that you hear about in that, and it just works. So that's one way. The only problem I ran with my workflow is that AI models are really slow and costly in outputting the whole file again. So I'm really thinking about chunking the file, then getting a coding implementation plan from a slower module, applying diffs per chunk with very, very fast models that exist. And then in the end, it should be a much more fun way to code that way. Because it's fast. And that's like my highest frustration with like Claude Console right now. Do this change. Yeah, here's your change. Okay, apply. Wait, and that's just not fun. And I feel like if there was a snappier way and a better use of like the different speed of the models, it could be better in that. Yeah, and now Marco, tools.
Yes, so the tools I use, what's up?
So.
Of course, I use the chat in our Open Web UI instance. I use deep research a lot. I invite you, if you haven't used deep research, please do. You find it on ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, and for whatever reason, they decided to use the same name everywhere. There are some differences, but it's not huge differences. Essentially, it's an agent that takes some time, does the researches for you, and then prepares a report. It's incredibly powerful. It can take quite some time, like 10, 15 minutes. Then Notebook LM, check it out if you haven't already. And then, of course, I use PHP Storm, and in particular, I use a plugin called ProxyEye. Previously, it was known as CodeGPT. They've changed name. You can use it with any provider, both remote providers and local providers, so with Ollama. Personally, I use it most often locally with Quen Code. You have a chat inside PHP Storm where you can query, you can reference maybe certain parts of the code or some files. There is a code assistant. There is code completion. As I said, I'm not a huge fan of that. You can generate the commit messages, but you can also chat about the GitHub history, for example, which is really nice. And then, yes, and then there is the elephant in the room. So who has used the Cursor or Visual Studio Code with Klein? Really? So few? Okay. Okay. So any of you, maybe somebody may know some friend who told them, oh, you know, the smart friend who told you, I've read that there's a tool that lets anybody code without knowing how to code, and you will be out of job soon. This is the code. This is the tool they were referring to. Essentially, it's something that, in the case of Klein, takes control of Visual Studio Code. It can read and write the files. It can run the commands in the terminal. It can browse a site with its own window, okay? And while it does all of this, it chats with you, and you talk about what you want to do. And then it also keeps a human-readable documentation, which it also uses as a reference for the next task. So it keeps like a brief of the project, then a change log, and so on. So I wanted to try this. And I did try it recently. There's a friend of mine who has a website, but it's not a Drupal website. I'm sorry, it's a WordPress website. And I have zero experience with WordPress. And she asked me if I could help her with some changes. And I had no idea what to do. So the first thing I did was I took a backup of her WordPress site. I downloaded it locally. I put it in a folder, and I just asked Klein, okay, make it run locally. Klein ran some commands. It looked inside the snapshots. It told me, okay, then this is database snapshot. These are the files. I will unpack the files here. Then I told it, yeah, by the way, I have DDEV. Maybe you can use it. And he goes, yeah, sure. And so he created a new DDEV environment. And then in a few minutes, I was just there looking at Klein. The site was running. Actually, it wasn't really running. It tried to run the site in its own browser. There was an error, and it was like, there's an error. Let me investigate. And it found there was a configuration error. It fixed it, and then the site was running. And I did nothing, okay? And then I had to change the admin password, which I had no idea how to do, and it could do it. And then I started, so it wrote a simple plugin to change a certain section of the site. My friend wanted to change other plugins. Then it helped me with theming. I'm definitely not a themer, and Klein was there doing exactly what I asked it to do. Now I can tell you these things, but I actually, next, I have a very short recording of Klein doing one of these tasks, okay? I have edited this recording, so in some places it will be faster, in other places it will be slower, but I thought it was nice to see. So I have already asked a question. You can see it on the top left. The question is not really important. And then it started, it collected the memory of the project. It kept on showing me how much I was spending. So now it's collecting all the memory, the changelog and everything. And then it started analyzing the problem, the double quote escaping, which I wanted it to fix. It found the root causes, actually 2 causes, and then it proposed a solution. And an implementation plan. And then it asked me, okay, now switch me to act mode, and then it actually started writing the code. So see, and there. Now it's fixing the first bug in a certain file. It's faster than me, enlarging the window. And it fixed that. And then it went on. There were other things to fix. And it asked me if I was okay with the change. I said, okay, yes, save the file. Then it found another issue. It fixed it. It went on, and it kept on fixing things. And I kept just on clicking save. And at the end, it updated the memory with the changelog. And it was, I was like, okay, I'm done. I cannot do any. I'm out of a job. Is this true? Could anybody have done this? So, for example, now this was very smooth, but in other cases it got stuck. For example, it got stuck it kept on using a certain CSS selector to do something, and then I kindly suggested maybe you could use this other selector, maybe, and he goes, yes, let's use the other selector. and that was, could have anybody else, a non-developer, suggest to use another selector? Probably not. So when you read that these tools are amazing, but they stop at 80%, 90%, that's probably what this means. There was also some convoluted logic that I asked it to change, to simplify. So, but it was incredibly impressive. I strongly recommend you have a look because it's an amazing tool. Let's go on. Okay, so lesson learned and challenges. First of all, LLMs are not humans, okay? They may seem like humans. They have an interface which works really well with ours, but there are big differences. If you are aware of these differences, the experience will be much smoother. For example, they are much better at focused tasks, okay? They have problems at the moment, like having a big picture of a project. Even if, like with the tools like the memory incline, this is getting better. One issue in my opinion, is that they're too accommodating. Okay, they don't argue with you too much. They tend to agree with you. They were rewarded to agree with you. So my sincere recommendation is to change your system prompt and ask it to kindly challenge you. You know, this really helps, in my opinion. Okay, another issue. I strongly recommend always to be very verbose. Okay, take your time. LLMs won't be annoyed at you. Okay, use full sentences. Don't use vague pronouns like it or they if it's not clear what they refer to. Be very explicit. Okay, LLMs don't read minds, and they will not be mad at you if you're a little verbose. Use examples as much as possible. Provide a lot of context. And with reasoning models in particular, always consider that they are not chat models. Since they're significantly different, they need a big prompt, okay, with a lot of context, a lot of information. Personally, I have spent easily 30 minutes on a single prompt when querying reasoning models. It's more or less like writing a good ticket. Okay, so if you write a good ticket, then the reasoning model will work much better. And this link is a very good reference for this kind of problem with the reasoning models. If you were not happy with the reasoning models, read that article. Hints. So should we provide hints or not? It depends. If you provide hints to the model, they will follow them. So provide them only if you're sure that that's correct path. Otherwise, just explain the problem and let it search for solutions. You should thank them because an AI takeover is coming soon. Okay, no, okay, no. There are some studies that suggest that if you thank them, it will route the model towards certain more polite sections of the neural network, and maybe those sections are more useful. So, and also it feels good. I thank them. I don't care. And something very important, go back in history. So if the model misunderstood what you were trying to ask, do not correct in the next reply. Okay, go back and edit the first or the previous message. This way you will keep the context clean, and it's also something that you cannot do in real life, so do it with the models. You can do it here. Yes, always keep in mind the context in mind. The context is a limited resource. It needs to be kept clean. And for example, when you start a new task, always start with a new conversation. And the last thing, learn to give up. When the model starts hallucinating, and it will happen, when it starts going in circles and it keeps on suggesting something, maybe the same code, the previous code, give up. Start from scratch with a cleaner context. Consider to shake things up a little bit. Maybe you can rephrase, maybe you can provide different context. If you see that the model was confused maybe by the version of a library, if you can, maybe you can upload the documentation, the API, even the source code of the library or what you're using. That's always useful. I will very, very quickly, I see Fabian is here breathing, talk about the ethical and the legal challenges. So very, very quickly, you need to be very clear with your clients when, first of all, you need to ask them if they are okay with you using AI. You need to be very clear when you use it in PRs, in reviews, in code, and so on. Be mindful of the data. Both the code, especially if it's your client's code, and even more important, if it's personal data, and if it goes to cloud models, it's a problem. Review, understand, and test the code of the models. Otherwise, you will pay sooner or later. Models make mistakes, and if you don't do that, you lose importance. You become irrelevant. If you review, understand deeply the code and test it, then it will work much better. Very quickly, we will need new UX patterns. For example, search. I've seen projects that are trying to apply the patterns of search to AI. It doesn't work really well. And I believe that in this area there will be a lot of interesting work in the future. It will be experimental, it will be fun, and something that we will do. And so, where are we? Is this advanced chess? Do you know what advanced chess is? It's something that Kasparov suggested in the 90s after he was beaten by Deep Blue. He suggested to have human players and chess engines work together to have this very powerful player. And it was an interesting idea. The problem is that after a few years, very powerful engines like Stockfish were introduced. That what happened? Maybe they turned the human into something irrelevant. I don't know. Actually, I've researched this. There is still a lot of debate, even nowadays. There's someone who says that with the powerful models, engines we have, the human is irrelevant, and others who say that no, humans can still add a lot to chess and advanced chess. In a way, I think this is a good metaphor, and also think that the problem space of chess is much more limited and defined than the problem space of programming. Okay, so if with advanced chess there's still a debate about this, I believe that with programming there is hope that we will not be irrelevant soon. Yes, so I believe that cooperation is the right path. The images that we were displaying before the session were all generated by AI, both the idea and the drawing. Okay, they weren't great. I know that. I did nothing. I asked for 20 images, generate 20 images, funny images about AI and so on. I just give a few hints, create something with DrupalCon, but not much more. They didn't work, quite frankly, but there were some good ideas. So probably if I worked a little bit on those ideas, maybe something good could have happened. Expect changes. Most of what we said today probably will be obsolete in a few months. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. I mean 2 hours ago, OpenAI introduced a new image model that probably created better images for the first slides. So keep on investigating, and it's very possible that maybe not just new models and new tools, but even new architectures like diffusion or JPA, maybe they will be interesting. And if you, for the few of you who haven't yet or who are not using AI, if you take just one thing from this talk, please try again, okay? Maybe next time that you are looking for something on Google and then you end up on Stack Overflow, try to ask one of these tools. And Fabian.
Yeah, real quick, the last parts. As Marco already said, review, understand, test all AI-generated code. You don't want to be part of the big AI takeover cloud, like when all the AIs decide to suddenly send commands to all the autonomous agents running. No, I really think it's important to be a little bit careful in that. While those models, especially Claude, did invest a lot into AI safety, which is why they provide the Claude console. It's also important to be a little bit paranoid of not just have AI create a huge PR, not understanding what it does, push it to production, and then, site breaks in under certain circumstances and that. So good development practices are still needed, but we are definitely at junior level developer of that, so that a senior can just advise a junior with a ticket, get some nice code back, review the code, push it as a PR and doing things like that. The other part was 2 more things to keeping history clean. One of my frustrations with ChatGPT was if you removed history, you lost everything that was there before. But in OpenWebUI, that's not the case. It forks endlessly, similar to how is Grok also working. So you can have as many fork trees from the same beginning as you want. And then it really makes sense to go back in history and start with a different starting point in that. So that's one of the things. The other part is why you want to do that is you don't want to incur $20 just for one thing, because I once worked with a very, very long context, which I continued on and on and on and on, and suddenly I got the message that I don't have any credit left. I was like, what's going on? I had $20 on that, and usually that's plenty, but because I was always sending this huge context again and again, at that point with no context caching, it got really, really expensive really fast. So that's also why I still believe that little tools like AA Refactor can play a role still in this whole ecosystem, because they always start fresh with the code in that and don't have all the context baggage. But what's really, really important is AI is a tool, and it can make you smarter or dumber in the end. And it's up to you of how you use it. Like, you can be lazy, you can delegate everything to AI, you can lose your power of being able to program, or it can make you a better programmer, a better code reviewer, a better developer in that. So one thing I do is I switch things up a little bit. Sometimes AI is the coder, sometimes I'm the coder, and AI is suggesting what I should do in that. And that keeps me fresh and my own LLM working well in that I'm well trained in still coding in that. So that's really important, using AI to empower yourself. Yeah, so because AI cannot only change the way we develop code, it can also change the developer. So AI is here to stay. You can use it to make you and your team more effective, or you could just chop wood, says the pragmatic lumberjack. Thank you very much, and we are way over time, but if there's questions, you can come up to us or contact us via our email, Twitter, whatever, and thank you.